In today's video, I'm going to be going over a project management toolkit that I've created within ClickUp. If you don't know what ClickUp is, there's a link down below. It's a project management software that can help you manage and collaborate on projects. So when you click on that link, the first thing it's going to ask you is what space do you want to put it in? So you could either put it in a existing space, or you can put it in, you could create a new space for it. So when you add it in, the first thing you're going to see is the entire space. So if you're selected on the entire space, it's going to show you all of the lists within that space. So in this situation, we have 3 different lists. If you click on the drop down, you'll see all the folders pop up. So right now I have just one folder for project 1. If you click the drop down, it opens up all of the items underneath that folder. So as you start getting more and more projects, you can duplicate that project 1 folder and call it project 2 and so on. So first things first, within a project, you probably always want to start off with a project charter. Kind of gather all the ideas together and formulate a problem statement, which is essentially just a quick description of what the issue is and why this project should exist. From there, it has a strategic goal, project objectives and deliverables, just concise bullet points of what this project aims to achieve and what some of the deliverables can look like. And then you have the different roles. So who's the sponsor for the project, who's the champion. Some organizations might call these roles differently, but you might want to document them within the project charter, as well as the team members. So who that individual is, what position they represent, and what group they represent. You can add whatever additional columns you'd like. Key milestones. So you want to tie in the associated objectives from the section above, as well as put in target dates. And then metrics and success criterias. So what you want to define what those are. You want to try to use quantifiable measures as well. Dependencies and project relationships. So you could actually, if say you have a project 2 folder and that project is dependent on project 3, you could add that dependency in here, and you could also link it to that project. And then you want to list out the meetings within the project charter, any assumptions, risks, anything that's out of scope, as well as any external costs. And then in the bottom, there's the approval section. So what I did here was, within my project schedule list, I have task for drafting the charter review and then finalizing the charter. So finalizing the charter is when the project sponsor essentially approves the project charter. So the reason why I wanted to link the task in there is that when the project sponsor essentially approves that the charter, they're able to just switch that to complete. And they're working directly out of this project charter. It's linked back into that schedule. Really easy and fun to use. So now I'm going to switch. I'm just going to jump right into the project schedule first, because a lot of this is going to tie in with the other templates. So the project schedule, there's a few different views at the top. You have the list view, which has everything in a nice format. So you have your 4 phases. You could add an initiation phase. You could tie it in with you could create a form that has some sort of intake if you want people to pitch in ideas for process improvement initiatives, etc. You could always do that as part of an initiation phase. But for this purposes, I went with 4 phases. Planning kind of kicks off the project, where you kind of gather those requirements, conduct your meetings, identify stakeholders, and assign your project team. So the way the subtasks work is, this is your first level. If you want to create another phase, you can do so here, right? So when you click the drop down, these are all of the subtasks underneath planning. So if you want to add a task underneath planning, you simply just select this plus create subtask icon. And then if you want to create a subtask under the subtask of gather requirements, you just simply do so there, and so on. And then if you want to assign dependencies, if you click on the task, you can assign dependencies there. So right now I have it where for me to identify and assign the project team, I need to conduct meetings and gather requirements. I need to understand what the scope possibly is for me to be able to assign a project team. And then I can't draft the charter until I know who's going to be working on this project. And at the top, there's a Gantt view. So if you click on it, you'll be able to see what that Gantt view looks like. So you could set up, you could simply click from here to link those two together. And what that does is essentially assigns that finish to start relationship. And then you also have a view for boards, which is simply broken up by to-dos, in progress, completes. You could group it by, you could show the subtasks if you want to see it at the level 2 subtasks. There's also a table view. Personally, I'm not a big fan of table view for managing project schedules that have a series of subtasks and nested subtasks. The list view is amazing for that, but table view is great for other lists that might not have those subtasks in there. Okay, so that was project schedule. So you essentially build your whole schedule, add all of your tasks in there. Now let's jump into the stakeholder matrix. So with the stakeholder matrix, I've added some notes in there to give you a starting point in terms of how you want to go about documenting this. There's really two methodologies, which is the power versus interest matrix and an influence versus impact grid. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you could add your project details in there and then identify your internal, external stakeholders. You could put in the functional team, named position, and then the classification. So whether it's influence versus impact or power versus interest methodology, if you want to go with the influence versus impact grid, if say there's an individual stakeholder that has high influence, but in this particular project he has low impact towards it and low interest, then that he falls into that keep satisfied bucket. But then if you have a stakeholder that is very interested but has low influence, they would fall under that keep informed. So you want to be able to document that stakeholder's classification, whether or not they're supportive, neutral, unsupportive, or unknown. That way you know how you want to manage that stakeholder, whether it's keeping informed, keeping satisfied, managing closely, etc. Then the next document is the roles and responsibilities. So roles and responsibilities, in a nutshell, you develop the RAAIDD matrix out of it, which stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It's essentially a grid that shows what everybody's roles and responsibilities are towards tasks within a project. So over here, I have 4 random tasks in there, along with a few different roles. So in this case, designing the sitemap, the strategist is responsible for designing it. However, the designer is accountable for it, and the project manager is consulted on the design, while the front end and the back end developer are informed. Then the next template is the after action review. You start off, you can list out your project details, and then you also list out who's going to participate in the after action review. So typically an after action review comes after a project or part of a project finished, where you want to sit back with the project team and talk about what worked well, what didn't work well, and how we can improve. All right, next up is the RAAIDD log. A RAAIDD log is essentially just a list of risks, assumptions, action items, issues, decisions, and dependencies. So some people might take out a few from that acronym, but for the most part, those are all of them. So within that list, there's an item type where you could see all the different options there. And then you have the table view or the board view, however you like looking at those. But the idea is to be able to document all of those risks. That way, if something happens, all the decisions that made up to a certain point are documented and can be reviewed. Next up is the project change requests. So this comes with a list, a table, a change request form. So the idea is you send out the form, to all of your stakeholders and clients. Anybody that can impact or request change to a specific project, essentially. So you're able to edit the form with whatever additional details you want. If you want to add in a due date where they can provide in like a, a due date, or add in attachments or whatever it is, you can add it to the form. But the idea is, so and so takes this form. They want to submit a change request for additional costs, or let's just say they want to add additional scope. Like there's somebody pitched a process of improvement idea that was determined that this project is a suitable project to add in that additional scope to it instead of spinning off a whole new project. So they're able to go into here, fill it out, submit. Once they submit it, it pulls into the table in the list where you're able to view all of the details. You're able to prioritize it, assign it to individuals that you want to review that change request. You can change the approval status from approved, rejected. You could also add in automations. I haven't added them to the templates, but you're welcome to go in and add automations that can notify you when a change request comes in, or notify the submitter when a change request has been approved or rejected. And that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. We hope to see you soon.